Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Talk Sports Show with Alec Pequignot here on Sunday, November 19th. Tonight's show is a busy show. I will be going over my Coach of the Year candidates for the Power 5 tonight, and then tomorrow night I will be going over my Group of 5 Coach of the Year. And I will also be going over my college football playoff rankings and top 25. Let's get started with my college football Coach of the Year candidates. For the Big Ten, here are my 3 Coach of the Year candidates. Number 3, Matt Rule. Number 2, Greg Schiano. Number 1, David Braun, Northwestern. Matt Rule the reason I have Matt Rule as my number 3 Coach of the Year candidate for the Big Ten is because there was somewhat of medium expectations for him in his first year, but people weren't expecting Nebraska to be that good this year. And seeing as that they won 5 games with a chance to go to a bowl game, if they win next week, then that deserves Coach of the Year votes for me. Number 2, Greg Schiano. What a turnaround for Rutgers this year. They were not very good last year. I think they made a bowl game last year. I can't remember. But Schiano's led them to a 6-win season with a chance to win 7 games. And I think that deserves Coach of the Year votes. And this last one, I definitely think deserves Coach of the Year votes. David Braun at Northwestern. Everybody thought once Pat Fitzgerald got fired that Northwestern won. I was even on the same train. I didn't think Northwestern. I had very, very low expectations for Northwestern this year. And they have blown past how many wins. I had them winning 2 games this year. And they've blown past that win total. They have won 6, and they're going to a bowl game. So I think David Braun deserves votes for Coach of the Year in the Big Ten. The Big 12 is next. And my 3 Coach of the Year candidates, in my opinion, for the Big 12, number 3, Mike Gundy, Oklahoma State. He has brought Oklahoma State back. They were good last year, but they didn't get ranked. They've been ranked twice this year. And I like Mike Gundy for Coach of the Year as my number 3 candidate. My number 2 candidate for Coach of the Year in the Big 12 is Brett Venables, Oklahoma. Oklahoma fans were at Brett Venables' head before the season. They wanted him gone. They wanted him fired. They thought all he was a good defensive coordinator. They got hired to be a head coach at Oklahoma because Lincoln Riley left. But now they're seeing that if you actually give him a chance, that he can be a good head coach. And number 1 for my Coach of the Year, in my opinion, in the Big 12, and you can either agree or disagree with me in the comments. Go ahead and put your comments in the comment section. Number 1 Big 12 Coach of the Year, in my opinion, candidate should be Neil Brown at West Virginia, because this guy was labeled on the hot seat before the season, and even I said that I didn't think West Virginia was going to be very competitive this year. I had them winning at most 2 games, and they're another team that exceeded expectations and won more. They've won 6 games, and they're going to a bowl game this year. And like I said, I was shocked at how many games they won. Now to the SEC. Here's my 3 SEC Coach of the Year candidates, in my opinion. Number 3, Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri. The reason Drinkwitz is on here is because he was a coach that, like I talked about with Neil Brown, when I talked about the Big 12 a minute ago. Eli Drinkwitz at Missouri was on the hot seat before the season started. Even though I didn't talk about him in the offseason and say how much on the hot seat he was. But I think he is firmly saved his job as the coach at Missouri. They are 9-2 with a chance to get 10 wins. And I think they can get to 10 wins. My number 2 Coach of the Year in the SEC is Brian Kelly at LSU. He was another one that people were saying, oh, maybe he's on the hot seat because he didn't have a good first year. And going into a second year, everybody's like, oh, is LSU going to compete in the SEC West? They do have 3 losses. And one of them's looking like a good loss now, and it was to Alabama, who's been playing really well over the last month and a half. And my number 1 Coach of the Year candidate, in my opinion, in the SEC is Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. Ole Miss has had a couple good years the last 2 years, but the reason I say Lane Kiffin should be getting votes for Coach of the Year is because look at what he's done with Jackson Dart. Last year, people didn't really know about Jackson Dart until he took off in the second half of the season. And he's doing the same thing this year. And their offense is really good, but so is their defense. ACC Coach of the Year. The number 3 guy I think that should get votes for Coach of the Year in the ACC, Jeff Hafley at Boston College. And the reason I think Hafley should get votes is because he was another one of these coaches that was on the hot seat and was going to get fired at Boston College, didn't have a good year. And they did not start out good. They started out 1-3, and it looked like it was going to come to fruition that Hafley was going to get fired. But somehow, miraculously, Boston College has won 6 games. They're 6-5 with a chance to get their 7th win against Miami this week, which I don't foresee it happening, but you never know. It is college football. Strange things tend to happen. My number 2 Coach of the Year in the ACC is Brett Pry at Virginia Tech. And the reason I say Brett Pry should get votes for Coach of the Year in the ACC is because look what he's done with Virginia Tech. He was on the hot seat at the beginning of the season. Everybody said he was going to be fired. And look at them. They stayed in the ACC title game race up until yesterday when they lost. So not only has Brett Pry saved his job, but I think he deserves votes for Coach of the Year. And the last guy that I think deserves votes for Coach of the Year in the ACC, and I know some people are going to disagree with me, Georgia Tech coach Brent Key, who took over midway through last season, and look where Georgia Tech's at now. They're most likely going to a bowl game. Look what he's done with them. He's turned them around. They're playing better than they have. Now, here is my Pac-12 Coaches of the Year candidates. Number 3, Jonathan Smith, Oregon State. Oregon State has been really good this year. And that is why I like Jonathan Smith to get votes for Coach of the Year. The last 2 And then I promise, ladies and gentlemen, we will get into the rankings. Number 2, Justin Wilcox. Like I've said about the last few coaches, from the SEC to the ACC to the Big 12, Wilcox was another one that was on the hot seat at Cal. And look what he's done. They're going to make a bowl game this year. And he's turned that program around. And now you can see they're going upwards. Their trajectory is up. And my number 1 coach of the year candidate in the Pac-12, Arizona coach Jedd Fisch. Look at Arizona, folks. They are for real. They're no joke. They are not to be messed with. Jedd Fisch has Arizona at 8-3 with a chance to possibly get 10 wins. And now to the reason why everybody's probably tuning into the video, my rankings. Here are my top 25 rankings. At number 25, I have UTSA. And just like I expected at the beginning of the season, I had a feeling they were going to be ranked at some point. I didn't know when, but since Frank Harris has come back, UTSA has played a lot better. Not going to say that the other 2 quarterbacks that played aren't good, but they're not no Frank Harris. And if you watched the live stream from Friday night, and you watched Frank Harris put on a show. He had over 500 yards of total offense and 5 touchdowns, 3 passing, 2 rushing, and I was very surprised how good he played against USF. Number 24, Troy. Troy's at 9-2, leader of the Sun Belt West, and I like how they've played this year. They've been a team that I've had my eye on for a little bit. They were in my rankings for a couple weeks earlier in the season, and then they got knocked out. Just as many teams do, they get knocked out, but now they're back in there. Number 23, Arizona. Here they are again. I just talked about their coach. Now I'm talking about them. I didn't think I would be saying this about Arizona at the beginning of the year, them being ranked, but since Noah Fafita's taken over at quarterback, Noah Fafita should not be benched. He should be their starting quarterback going forward in the rest of this season and going into next season. Look where he's taken them. They are ranked. At number 22, Toledo. Toledo's 10-1, and they get a rematch with a certain team that is also in my rankings. You'll see them a little bit later on. But Jason Candle has his boys playing really well. Number 21, Notre Dame. The only reason they stick in the rankings is I know they have 3 losses, but one of those losses is to Ohio State. And that's going to look good on their resume at the end of the season, especially if Ohio State doesn't lose. At number 20, Iowa. They have wrapped up the Big Ten West, and I was kind of high on them this year, and I expected them to win at least 7 games, and they've overdone that by 2, so they've won 9. And I like they're finding they're rounding in the form at the right time. LSU's at number 19. LSU was a team that kept sticking around and sticking around. I booted them from the rankings for a week, but then now they're back. And they're probably going to stick around in the rankings no matter what. Now, the question if they move up or down, that's to be determined. Number 18, UNLV. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to place your eyes on the UNLV running Rebels. The Rebels are UNLV, They are one of the 3 best teams in the Mountain West. Air Force would have been ranked, but they have 3 losses. And I feel like they're going to lose another game. But UNLV is good. Number 17, Oklahoma State. Again, another team. I talked about their coach for Coach of the Year, Mike Gundy. And I love Oklahoma. Oklahoma State is one of the teams that's grown on me throughout the season. And don't mind me if I jumped on their hype train and I've stuck with them. They did beat Oklahoma. And they're at number 17. Number 16, Tulane. A one-loss group of 5 team. Tulane is one of the best group of 5 teams. I would have said Air Force, but Air Force has lost 2 games. And I know you're going to see my rankings and say, oh, there's a bunch of 2-loss teams in there. Yes, there is a bunch of 2-loss teams in my rankings. They can do it on offense. They can do it on defense. That's 2 out of 3 phases. And if you ask them, they could probably win a game on special teams also. Number 15, SMU. 9-2 on the season. And looking to go to 10-2. And they've got a big, it's either this week or next week. They've got a big game against UTSA. I think it's this week, but I might be wrong. They might have already had that game. No, it is this week. SMU, UTSA this week. And I like UTSA in that game. Number 14, Miami of Ohio. They moved up 2 spots. They were 16 last week, I believe. Now they're 14th. Miami of Ohio is another team. They only have 2 losses. One of them was to a good a subpar Miami, Florida team. And the other one was to Toledo 2 or 3 weeks ago after their quarterback got hurt. Number 13, James Madison. Now you see why I thought game day should have been at Washington and Oregon State. James Madison had a chance to show everybody why they should have been in a New Year's Six Bowl, and they blew it. They lost. This happens every year. App State plays a ranked team and beats a ranked team. You can almost bet money on it that App State's going to beat a ranked team, at least one ranked team, every year. And that's why James Madison has been moved down in my rankings. Number 12, Louisville. If Louisville doesn't lose to Pitt earlier in the season, they are undefeated and they're probably higher up in my rankings now. But I still like Louisville. I love Jeff Brom. I know what people are going to say. Why wasn't Jeff Brom one of your 3 Coach of the Year candidates for the ACC? He's my dark horse candidate for Coach of the Year in the ACC. Number 11, Missouri. Like I said, nobody expected Mizzou to be this good this year. 9-2 with a chance to win 2 more games. They play Arkansas this week. And I'm giving you a heads up right now. You will get college football upset picks every show this week. Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday show. You will get upset picks. And you'll get your normal upset picks on Friday too. So I'm giving you 12 total upset picks. But back to Missouri. Brady Cook is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the SEC. And you got Cody Schrader, one of the best running backs in the SEC, who just 2 weeks ago against Tennessee went for 300 yards rushing. At number 10, Penn State. Yes, I moved them back up because they won convincingly against Rutgers. And if you look at you might see Penn State on the college football upset pick show this week. Not as an upset pick, but the other way around. Maybe as a lock. Maybe as a cover pick, or maybe the over-under. Number 9, Liberty. Liberty's still undefeated. I think they're going 12-0. And they will get a New Year's Six bowl game. At number 8, Alabama. I wrote them off, and I guess they didn't write back. Alabama is not a team to be messing with right now. And I'm sorry, Georgia fans, but I think Alabama might end your undefeated season. Might. At number 7, Texas. I don't know what to say about Texas, but what I'm going to say is they survived against Iowa State. 26-16. They just find ways to survive and advance and win games. That is simple. Number 6, Oregon. I like Bo Nix. I think he should be a Heisman contender, a contender for the Heisman Trophy this year. I think it's going to be either Michael Penix or Bo Nix that wins the Heisman. Or maybe there's an outside chance, maybe Marvin Harrison from Ohio State. At number 5, Florida State. And I had them at 4, but I'm going to explain why I moved them back. If you didn't see their game on Saturday against North Alabama, in the first half, Jordan Travis got hurt, and he's probably done for the season, and his college career is probably over because I think he's out of eligibility, so he's probably going to the NFL, and I don't know much about Tate Rodemaker, the backup at Florida State, but because he barely plays because Travis would play the whole game, every game, and through the fourth quarter, unless they were leading big and they take him out and put in Rodemaker. But that was mop-up duty. Now we get to see if Tate Rodemaker is a good quarterback. And that is the explanation as to why Florida State's at 5 and not 4. At number 4, Washington. This one's kind of tricky. I could have moved could have put a certain team here and had Washington at 3, but Washington really scares me. Washington scares me a lot with the fact that they just keep winning, but they don't win big. They win by 2 or 3 points, and you can't keep doing that. I understand it's wins, but you can't keep winning by that few amount of points. At number 3, Michigan. They did not look good against Maryland, but a win is a win, and I'm going to say that's probably all that matters. And I'm going to say this. Some of my rankings for the playoff are the same as this one, but Michigan, Ohio State, this week on Saturday at noon. And I'm going to give you a little heads up right now. You will see this game on Monday's College Football Upset Picks show. Number 2, Ohio State. They just narrowly missed a shutout again against the bad team, not so good team in Minnesota. 37-3. There was a scary moment at the end of the first half. Kyle McCord got hurt, but he came out, played the second half, and I think Ohio State's going to be fine. I think this is going to be a good game against Michigan. Really close game. I think it's going to be hard fought, good. And at number 1, Georgia. I was wrong on Georgia. I said they were going to lose a game. They might still lose a game. A game. I said they would lose 3 this year. But when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I will take the L on Georgia losing more than 2 games this year. Because it's probably not going to happen. And now let's get to my playoff rankings. So at number 25, UTSA. And yes, these rankings are probably going to be the same, but the teams may be switched up a tad bit where they're ranked in the playoff rankings as compared to the other rankings I just did. But UTSA is at number 25. And I'm also going to give you another little tidbit on the reason. The other reason UTSA is in my rankings is Jeff Traylor is a really good Group of 5 coach that is getting hype for major power for the Texas A&M job, which on Monday's show tomorrow, if y'all didn't see the community poll I put up this morning, it's going to be a long show, like an hour long, and I will be going over my upset picks and some coaching replacements. At number 24, Oklahoma State. 23, Toledo. 22, James Madison. 21, Troy. 20, Miami of Ohio. Tulane. Oh, wait. Number 18, Oregon State. They were not in the other rankings. They are in my playoff rankings. They did lose barely to Washington, but that's still a good loss. That is still a decently good loss for Oregon State. They play Oregon this week. That should be a really good game. 17, Iowa. SMU 16. That should have been somebody else. I noticed the mistake I made at number 19. Number 19, UNLV. Ignore when I first clicked on it and it said Tulane. That was a error on my part. I'm sorry. So Iowa. Arizona at number 14. Number 14, Arizona. Jed Fish is a really good coach that I think is going to get better head coaching job offers from schools. Louisville at 13. Jeff Brom is a really good head coach. It doesn't matter where he's at, whether it be Louisville in this case or when he was at Purdue. That's pretty good. Hold up, ladies and gentlemen. I am making a little rankings adjustment. Number 12, LSU. Jaden Daniels is another guy that should be in the Heisman race. I like Jaden Daniels a lot. Number 11, Liberty. 10, Penn State. Number 9, Oregon. Number 8, Oklahoma. I like Oklahoma. The one thing I'm scared with Oklahoma about is I believe Dylan Gabriel got hurt yesterday again in their game against when they played yesterday. I believe Dylan Gabriel got hurt. So monitor his status. Number 7, Texas. Texas, Steve Sarkisian is a good head coach, it appears. I really like Steve Sarkisian. Number 6, Washington. Number 5, Alabama. I'm going to say this about Bama. I wrote them off after losing to Texas, and I said they were done. Nick Saban proves me wrong again. I'm going to stop doubting Nick Saban. I really need to. Number 4, Florida State. I did not move them up or down in the playoff rankings. They stayed at number 4. Number 3, Michigan. They went without Harbaugh, which seems like they probably shouldn't have won, but they did. And that's all that matters. Number 2, Ohio State. Ohio State's defense is looking mighty good. They're looking better than last year. I think they can stop Michigan's running backs. And at number 1, Georgia. Undefeated, and until somebody beats them, they will be number 1. And ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for tonight's show. Thank you. Have a great rest of your night. I will see you tomorrow night at 9 o'clock for the college football upset special.